We've talked about heroes, parties of adventurers, and chosen ones, setting out into RPG worlds to make them better. But something we haven't spoken to yet are our protagonist villains. Not to be confused with anti-heroes, characters who lack expected heroic qualities and act in morally gray areas for some sake of good. These characters are the central focus of their games, but are by no means the heroes of them. They might be displayed in sympathetic light or even have some redeeming qualities, but one thing must always remain true. They are a villain, whose actions and deeds are in no way rationalized or even justified, apart from the corrupt, destructive, or evil nature that inspires those deeds. I am CRT Game Design, and today, let's talk about how designers create interesting and compelling villain protagonists in their game. There's no better place to start than Dungeon Keeper, the game that many consider to be the pioneer of villain protagonists in video games. A game that casted its players as evil overlords, keepers of a dungeon, who carved out their evil domain, loading it with all manner of deadly traps and conscripting all manner of evil creatures and minions, and enforcing their will over them, using intimidation to spread their darkness over the land. But of course, when a villain rises, so do heroes that seek to stop them. Or you, in this case, as they are the main enemy of the game. Heroes take many forms, noble knights, hulking giants, but their goal is simple: to stop the darkness from spreading and defend their realm from the likes of you. What we have here is a classic flip scenario, taking the trope of hero versus villain and turning it on its head, inverting it so that our players get to play and experience the other side, the other perspective. They can do traditionally evil things, and that has strength to it. Sometimes in titles where we give a player a choice between good and evil, and we read out a list of things both choices will affect, oftentimes players feel morally obligated to do the right thing, the good thing, the just thing. Fable 3, I think, is a good example of a game that suffers from an issue like this. The entire game, despite what alignment you find yourself under, has you meeting friends, making allies, and holding those alliances together through promises. And when that player is elected monarch of the land of Albion, choices are presented to them in an almost cartoon-style throne room scene. Choices like keeping the town orphanage at a cost, to keep your promise and make a good impact on the city and the kids who've been impoverished and dying in child factories. Or you can turn that orphanage into a brothel and make a bunch of gold with your big pal Reaver. And if you choose to go with the evil option, you're standing right there in front of the face of your ally, who you just broke your promise to. They will share some harsh or heartbroken words, and that kind of social pressure, no matter how fictional, is something players will oftentimes try to avoid. If the game is doing its job in being immersive, and they feel guilty at every turn, it's hard to convince players to do the evil thing, making the choice a villain would make. But in taking away the choice and flipping the script, we can oftentimes leave players with a feeling of, did anything really change? Well, their choices did, kind of things they're doing are now evil, but without choice, does it cheapen them becoming the villain? Games like Tyranny and Overlord are each a masterclass in their own right, in seeing how a choice-based RPG from a villain's perspective can unfold. Tyranny is the player in a realm where a tyrant has already won. They strengthen that tyranny or dismantle it to their own ends. It tackles the role of villain from so many perspectives of morality, but each choice will lean towards that player's own ambition, should they choose. Similarly, Overlord has you play as the newly reincarnated evil Overlord, who controls an army of goblinoid minions. The last one was killed by a group of heroes, who've now been corrupted, and each lay claim to a part of the Overlord's lands. Your lands. At first, it kind of plays out as a story of a silent anti-hero, but as each sin is explored and each plot point revealed, the player begins to understand that evil will always find a way, even through them. Now you'll notice something. In every example we've used, the threat to the player comes from heroes, adventurers, those we would normally find ourselves playing the role of, say in another RPG. But while having that heroic element trying to stop us, that good in the world, can oftentimes be important for us designers to showcase how truly villainous our players are, it isn't always necessary. In fact, sometimes a setting lacking any good or any righteousness at all can be one where our player feels truly at home as a villain. These are evil versus evil settings. It's hard to keep the world in your own villainous grasp when it's in the hand of another evil overlord. So, we pit two evils against each other. There's no better example here than the Warhammer Fantasy, and to an even greater extent, the Warhammer 40k universes. Every faction and race in this universe, across multiple RPGs, in some sense plays a villainous role. From genocidal space marines with no regard for alien life, to rampaging orcs consuming every resource and life in their path. When we paint the entire world gray and allow villainy in all aspects to thrive in different ways, ways, players are no longer concerned with that karma meter or alignment like they would normally be in an RPG. When a player is evil and the threats they face are also very much evil, the gameplay becomes primary. You're not worried on your impact on stealing from a family because you're stealing from other thieves, maybe even warlords instead. In fact, one of the best aspects of gameplay in a previous example, Dungeon Keeper, was actually when you would face off against rival keepers, other evil overlords like yourself who were also vying for power, taking them down and proving that you were the ultimate villain. Doing that in a setting makes for some really engaging gameplay. All of these methods, no matter how different from each other, offer an experience, the ability to subvert the expectations of players who have grown accustomed to the stories of chosen ones and long-lost heroes. And when we offer new perspectives as designers, there's opportunity for new stories, mechanics, and most importantly, gameplay from the villain's perspective, which can only ever serve to increase creativity and provide our players with something new. I hope you all enjoyed this week's game design talk on villainous protagonists in RPGs. Now, sometimes the best hero is none at all. As always, I would love to hear from you. What do you think about villain or evil protagonists? Leave a comment below. I'll respond to them all. And as usual, a huge thank you to our patrons over on Patreon. New content is coming out every single week thanks to these fine individuals. If you want to go to support our game design talk series, you can find that link in the description. Until next time, keep designing, never lose your passion, and I will see you all in the next game design talk. Bye guys.